What's going on, guys? Blake Hawthorn, it's his turf. Tonight we're going to be looking at footers, utilities, and drains, and something unexpected that happened in the process. Welcome, guys, to Friday Night Hardscapes. Tonight is part 3 of this 10-part series that we're doing on our Hardscape project. If you haven't seen part 1 and 2, be sure and go back, check those out. They started the design process, and we're going to be going all the way through the finished project reveal. What we're going to be jumping into tonight is the footers, the utilities, and the drains. All of this has to go in before we can start setting forms and pouring our patio. All right, something to note is that we are not to complete and final grade. So the reason we don't want to do that is because we're literally digging this whole space up. The first thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to reroute all of the irrigation. We start to cap and move heads, relocate valves, and do things just to pull all the irrigation outside of our patio space. There are some main lines that we're not able to relocate, so what we'll do is we'll actually set in conduits in case those ever burst underneath the slab, that we'll be able to relocate them later on through the conduit back over to the other side of the patio. The next thing we do after the irrigation is rerouted is we will actually start to do our drainage. For this project, we have the 6-inch pipe that we're putting in for the splash pad, and then that runs up and reduces down into a 4-inch pipe that ties into our channel drain that's going in front of the basement door, and then our channel drains are going to go inside the kitchen area itself. Unfortunately, while we were digging this, we actually got into groundwater that was leaching from the lake. So as we're digging this trench back, our hole started to fill up with water and we hit the water table. All right, guys, so that was the thing that was unexpected, but luckily we're able to just put gravel down in the base, set the pipe back in, and then demo out the seawall so that we can run this drain pipe out into the lake. We're gonna keep this drain pipe just above the water level, so that way the lake doesn't come into the backyard. After we finish installing the drainage, that's when we'll start to run our other utilities. First thing that I'm gonna run is our electrical conduits. I'm gonna use an 1.5 inch electrical conduit, and make sure that you use sweeping 90s when you're installing this. That way when you're feeding your fish tape or your wires and electrical into here, that they don't get hung up on those corners. Typically when you run a hard 90, that's when any time that your wires will either get snagged or your fish tape will get hung up, and it's just a real pain in the butt. So be sure and use sweeping 90s when you're installing any type of conduit or utilities. Typically what happens is we'll run the conduits for the electrician. The electrician will come back in after the kitchen's established. That's when they'll run the wires up into the kitchen area and start to set all the outlets where we have the designated areas for that. We'll actually do the same thing for plumbing. I'll bump it up to a 2-inch conduit for this, and we'll use a flexible poly pipe for our water line. And this is what we're gonna run up into the kitchen area we have for our sink and for our hot water heater. So that's something we'll touch on when we get into the appliances, is more about that hot water heater and all of those details. After our water line is installed, the next thing that we will install is our gas lines. For this kitchen specifically, we have a lot of units that are running off of natural gas. So what we'll do is we'll have to bump up this line from 1 inch to 1.25 inches, just to make sure that we have enough gas to supply all of the appliances in case the customer has a big cookout and runs all of them at the same time. Guys, please note that this design does have a fish fryer, but anytime that we install a fish fryer, we recommend that the customer puts in a portable propane bottle and runs it off of that, just because it takes so many more BTUs than all of your other kitchen appliances that you need a special valve for that and regulator. And that's something that we don't want to install just because of the cost. It's a lot more affordable to put it on the portable propane bottle. Once all the utilities are installed, now we can start final grade. So we'll get everything to final grade, and then that's when we'll start to set forms, lay down Visqueen, and install rebar. That's what we'll touch on next week, guys. So be sure, stay tuned for next week when we cover that, right before we start pouring some concrete and getting these patios installed. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. Thank you, guys. God bless, and we'll see you next week.